Our scripture reading this morning is found in Isaiah chapter 27, verses 2 through 5. Isaiah 27, 2 through 5. In that day sing ye unto her, a vineyard of red wine. I, the Lord, do keep it. I will water it every moment, lest any hurt it. I will keep it night and day. Fury is not in me. Who would set the briars and thorns against me in battle? I would go through them, I would burn them together. Or let him take hold of my strength, that he may make peace with me, and he shall make peace with me. May the Lord add his blessing to the reading of his word.
Amen. I have no notes. This is simply going to be, I sent Tara Marie the title for this, but she may not have understood it was a title. It was simply review. I'm just going to review some things that have happened here recently. For those of us that are following this message. I'll start with, there's a few things that Brother Pippenger has brought into the mix once he's finally focused himself back on this message. If you're not aware of it, he was pretty much in secular employment until we did the Wales camp meeting, whenever that was. December last year, and then he's committed himself to go full-time into the message now, and one of his strengths is he's a real technical, careful person, so there was a few things that he was sharing there at Canada that are worth acknowledging at the beginning. First day of the first month, first day of the fifth month, 10th day of the seventh month. Okay. We understand this in the Millerite history to be April 19th, 1844, but it's typifying 9/11 in our history. In the Millerite history, it was the Exeter camp meeting, August 15th. It's the midnight cry in the future for us. This was October 22nd, 1844 for the Millerites. It's a Sunday law for us. Kathleen Clayton, are you with me? So one of the things that we struggled with, I don't know if we struggled with, but we dealt with as this message was coming together, was the fact that we have been teaching that here at the Midnight Cry on August 15th, that this was when the Midnight Cry arrived. And this is also when Ezra arrived in Jerusalem. Okay, but then as it developed, if you remember, we realized that actually Samuel Snow got to Exeter on the 14th and did a presentation on the 14th. And then he repeated it the next morning on the 15th. And that caused a little bit of dilemma in our thinking. Here we've been saying the 15th was the date, but it was the 14th. And then the Lord resolved that with the concept that at the Midnight Cry this is doubling, okay? And it just so happened that we were at this point in time in our studies. Everyone remember this? Yeah. It happened when we were grappling with this. It's the time period when Noel was putting it into the record. And then after that, Sister Tamina was here. And we happened to be in the providence of the Lord going through the great controversy, if you remember, in Sabbath school. And we were at the point where we were looking at the Reformation of Martin Luther, and we began to realize that all the characteristics that are in every reformatory movement were in the reformatory movement of Martin Luther. So as we began to put that together, Sister Tamina found websites in German that had quotations from old German authorities that you and I couldn't read even if we could find the website. So she's put together a very thorough presentation on how Martin Luther's reformatory period is illustrated here. And I mean, when you look at the information, you've got the 2520s marked in that history, the 46, there's all kinds of little tiny details that she's pulled together. But one of them that we saw is that Martin Luther first gave his presentation in Latin and then in German, or vice versa. Okay, so we see that there's two presentations:
German and then Latin.
German and then Latin. So we were seeing in the history of Martin Luther the justification for Samuel Snow speaking on the 14th and the 15th. Okay, so as if you remember, as we were grappling with this, we were dealing with Karaite reckoning of time and Gregorian time, and here's what we were trying to do. We were trying to see 120 days from the first day of the first month that brought you to the first day of the fifth month. But it doesn't. 4 months brings you to the 14th. So, Brother Pippenger made his arguments in Canada, and they're very sound. Number one, what he was saying is that in Ezra 7:9, you only have 2 dates. You have the first day of the first month and the first day of the fifth month. So what you have at that level is you have a starting point here and a starting point here, but there's no ending point marked. Okay. So
There's 2 starting points.
yeah, Samuel Snow and we thereafter have concluded that the ending point for this period was the 10th day of the 7th month. So it took extra work beyond Ezra 7:9 to find the ending point here. And what I'm saying is the actual ending point is the 14th. Okay, so what that does is it puts 120 days in here. 4 months, 4 times 30, 120 days. And then the first day of the first month is the starting point, and you have 70 here. Okay, what we were trying to do, and we struggled a lot with this, is we were trying to make the 120th day also be the first day of the fifth month. Okay, and we had a lot of misguided logic for doing so. But we don't need to. It doesn't gain anything, and is not correct. What it's saying is, this period here is represented by 120. This period here is represented by 70. And the fact that the 120th day is the 14th when Samuel Snow first presented the message at Exeter is easily understood, that he presents it again on the 15th the next morning, just like Luther's 2 presentations and other illustrations of this. So those presentations bind these 2 periods together, but this period is symbolized by 120 and 70. If you insist on marking the first day of the fifth month as the end of this period, then it's actually 121 days. You follow me?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, this is now a matter of public record. Everyone got that? Now, we ask Pippenger to do the number 4, among other things, in Canada, and I came halfway through. He was just getting to the number 4 when I got there, but he'd been doing the reform lines. It's a different subject now. But he put in place the reform lines before we got in Canada. And I wished I could I had in my head the details that he was doing with the reform lines, okay, because it was, well, he may did a really good job before I got there, but what I could see what he's led to, I'm not sure that you've looked at what he did afterwards. What he did afterwards is really profound. It's an argument that from the reform lines that really speaks to the shaking that's going on in Adventism. Okay, so let me mark these off as I go through. He went through and showed, as we all know, that this is Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, and Zedekiah. And that with Zedekiah, you have the destruction of Jerusalem. D of Jerusalem. Okay? Everyone follow that? But these three kings are one unit of thought because they are all confronted by Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar deals with Kim, Chin, and Zedekiah. Okay, so we know that this is the three-step testing process that leads to the Sunday law at the end of the world upon multitudes of witnesses, whether this is Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas coming to where the ark is captured, Ichabod, they're all wiped out, Shiloh's raised up, or whether you have Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. You know, there's just many, many witnesses that these three waymarks that lead to the destruction of Jerusalem is the Sunday law. Okay, now, Brother Pippenger has put this in place really well as he's leading to the conclusion in Canada. So what he did, among other things, it's really significant. And by the way, if you get a chance to go into Canada and look at these presentations, you ought to, because there's things that he does with the 70 years and the 140 years that ties this history together with the history when they're coming out of Babylon that is very profound, and 490 years. He has that all woven in there. But where he gets with this is that the destruction of Jerusalem in the time of Zedekiah is also the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. Right? This is destruction by Babylon, this is destruction by Rome, both of Jerusalem. And Sister White says the destruction of Jerusalem illustrates the end of the world. So, and I'm really shrinking this down, one of the things that Pippenger puts into place is that in the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70, you have the abomination of desolation. Okay, the abomination of desolation was a sign to the Christians to flee Jerusalem in advance of the destruction that was going to take place by Titus. Okay, so Cestius, he comes to Jerusalem and surrounds it, and exactly 1,260 days later, Titus is going to return and destroy it. And we know this because it is marked in inspiration that this is the Feast of Tabernacles. And this is the Feast of Passover. And that's 1,260 days to the very letter. Okay? So from here to here, Pippenger's put in place that because this is the destruction of Jerusalem with Zedekiah, and this is the destruction of Jerusalem with Titus, then in advance of the destruction of Jerusalem, you have a warning message, okay? A trumpet message here. Of course, we've already, on other lines, and Pippenger has done so as well. He's marking this as 9/11, and this would be 9/11. When there's a warning, and this is what Cestius is about. Here's a warning. What's the warning? Get out of Jerusalem in that history. Okay? So the point is this, just so you'll get this tidbit. From these lines, Brother Pippenger establishes just from these lines, okay, not from any passages in the scriptures about the day of the Lord or the day of the Lord's preparation, just from these lines, he shows that the destruction of Jerusalem is the Sunday law, and that God's dealings with man is ever the same, so he always gives a warning in advance of the Sunday law. So he's demonstrating that 9/11 is the warning that tells that the day of the Lord is coming. So what he did with those lines up there is he took apart this argument that the day of the Lord begins here. Okay, and he did it from an argument no one has put in the record. So it's, if you haven't followed that argument,
You're saying that he dismantled the idea that the day of the Lord begins at 9/11?
yes,
Okay.
because 911 has many witnesses that there is a warning in advance of the destruction of Jerusalem, and 911 is the warning to prepare for what's coming. So he didn't challenge any of the logic that we've been using on this subject, but he just really destroyed the idea that the day of the Lord began at 9/11, which is cool. Since Pippenger in December decided to get into this message full time again, or maybe for the first time, but take it serious, he now has 2 strong groups going in the UK. So things are moving forward. I don't know that you heard it. Different subject. Yes.
How does that impact the point in time, period of time issue on that?
More information.
Well, maybe I didn't understand it
The
totally.
day of the Lord begins at the Sunday law. And it goes all the way, in theory, to the destruction of the wicked at the end of the 1,000 years.
But prior to that, I think what you were just saying is that our understanding was believed it started at 9/11.
Yeah.
He did away with that, so that was a period of time? Maybe
No.
The day of the Lord begins at the Sunday law. What he's showing is that before Jerusalem is destroyed, the Lord always gives a warning message of the impending destruction. And he lined that up with 9/11, and he did so by the destruction of Jerusalem from AD 66 to AD 70.
He's saying that we thought both said that. We thought that we were saying that we were
No, he knows that Path of the Just and Emiliano and some of these other guys teach that the day of the Lord begins at 9/11, and they're wrong. And we've proved that they're wrong just by taking the passages from the scriptures where the day of the Lord is referenced. We prove that they're wrong by taking the passages from the scriptures about the day of the Lord's preparation preceding the day of the Lord. 9/11 is the day of the Lord's preparation, and as Seventh-day Adventists, we know there's a preparation day before the day of the Lord, which is the Sunday law, the Sabbath issue.
So this was showing
He did this strictly from the Reform lines.
So this was the warning is the same as the day of the Lord's preparation. The warning.
The warning is the day of the Lord's preparation. Yes.
So what my misunderstanding was, this supports your position, this message position.
This supports the truth.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, okay. I'll go to Esther 3, different subject now. If you noticed, this message isn't static. And Esther chapter 3. Esther. And I don't spend a lot, when I'm hanging around with Theodore up in Canada, who does a lot of Bible chronology, I listen to him, I appreciate his input, but those kind of things don't click on me as easily as other things, so I don't spend a lot of time going back and forth with him. And he raised an issue. He's trying to argue. I disagree with him. I told him I disagree with him. He's arguing that the mistake of the Millerites was the year zero. Okay, he admits that they never used that term, but he says as he understands their logic that led to the disappointment, that for us to call it the year zero mistake is accurate. And I'm not buying that, because the year zero mistake is an afterthought to that history, and there's no reason to go back into that history and read an afterthought back into it. I'm just not willing to go there. But I'm only saying that because I've been watching the interaction between him and Michael on this subject. And if you heard in Sabbath school class today, there was a little bit of issue about ushers being the point of reference for the dates on here. So there are still things that are swirling. Oh, and I took you to Esther. Just keep your finger there. We'll go there next. And I don't think that's bad that we're still being forced to fine-tune things. I'm just, part of the review is that there are still issues that are being hammered out in these things. But before we go to Esther, where I intended to go before here, did you know that Mark, Pippenger, Tyler, and Tabo went to Ghana and Zimbabwe not so long ago, and they had good success, so much so that the brethren in Ghana have found land where they're trying to set up a school, and the brethren in Zimbabwe have purchased land. They already have people out on the property. And in South Africa, this is a totally different subject, so make the mental distinction here. In South Africa, there is a Pentecostal charismatic preacher that's causing great alarm in South Africa because he's performing a bunch of foolish, charismatic miracles. All right? But he's got an end-of-the-world message, and there's a bunch of foolishness going on in South Africa by some charismatic pastor. And South Africa is right next door to Zimbabwe. So while we were in Canada, the group that had moved out in the country, the group that we're working with, they became the focus of the national press in Zimbabwe because they had quit their secular pursuits and they're moved out in the country believing the Lord's return is imminent, and they're wanting to get ready. And the article was mixed in with all of this story about this charismatic Pentecostal pastor in South Africa. And the point of reference was a young man's wife, young man's mother that was 17 years old, that stepped out of the university and went ahead and moved out on that farm to get ready with this message for the return of the Lord. And his mother was the one that was giving the interview to this national newspaper in Zimbabwe. And it appears that she had the police go out and escort her son away from this compound. And what I'm saying is the group in Zimbabwe that got started when we were there is now the focus of the wrath of the people in Zimbabwe about their understanding of the second coming of Christ. And they're being placed in the context of someone like Jim Jones. So they need your prayers. That's exactly what we've been saying about this message. There's going to be things that start bringing the people that are in this messages to the forefront of the public. This is part of the plowing that goes on. But those brethren over there, new in this message, do not have the finances we have. They're no doubt under a great trial right now. Okay, now Esther 3, 6 through 10. We spent a lot of time struggling with this, and there's maybe going to be some more struggling with this. But Pippenger presented something along this line, very simple, a little bit not the same of what we've been teaching about Esther, and we've been spending a lot of time in Esther, and this is just one little point. Verse 6 says, and he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Okay, this is Haman. He wants to deal with Mordecai. For they had showed him the people of Mordecai, wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month to the 12th month, that is the month of Adar. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people. Now that's enough there, for here is Parmender's logic, and it's pretty good logic. First day, first month. This, we never related to it this way. He's saying that on the 12th day, they got their answer.
You mean Haman?
Yes. And he goes into the king on the 13th day, and the king agrees to have this decree written. Now, we already know the decree was written on the 13th, and then it goes into effect 70 days later on the 23rd. So we've already seen this, but what Parminder is arguing, we were doing a lot of, the casting of lots was taking a whole year, and we were uncertain, and it's pretty uncertain here on how you relate to this. There isn't a lot of information about the detail of what it means that they were casting lots, is what I'm saying. But with Parminder's approach, if they start casting lots on the first day of the first month, and on day 12 they got it figured out, then you have 12 days here. He goes into the king on the 13th and gets the decree signed. You got a real strong 12 and 70 here, which is 120. The 12 is 120. Yeah, you got the disciples. You got Isaiah 6, where a 10th part is going to be standing. So, we already use 126 for the 1260. We use 7 for 70 for 700. So, anyway, if it took 12 days to cast lots, the 13th day he goes in and he gets the decree. We already understand that. And 70 days later, on the 23rd, it goes into effect. This is the Sunday law, this is the midnight cry, and this is a 12 going back to the first day of the first month. This seems sound.
So the first day of the first month, the midnight cry, and Sunday law, in between is 12 and 7. That's what we were teaching all along, right?
No. That isn't what we were teaching.
No, that's what I mean. In other lines, we've been teaching the same.
Oh yeah, these are the symbols that qualify for these periods.
Matches the other lines.
Yeah.
Brother Jeff, verse 12, I think, enforces what he's saying, because on the first month, the 13th day, the scribes were called. That means that a meeting had to have taken place before that, in order for them to bring in all the scribes to write out.
Yeah, you read it through. It's sound. Okay. I looked for a quote this morning, but I got distracted. Maybe some of you will at least know of the quote, and it's not a word for word that I'm going to give you, so you're going to have to know of it theoretically. There's passages where Sister White talks about the backsliders that come in, going to have a greater struggle going through the testing period than those people that are settled into the truth early on. You know those quotes where that's taught? I don't remember what it did, but anyone else besides Dwayne and Deborah familiar with those? Okay, so we're aware of that. Okay, so recently, when I'm thinking of your daughter and my son and other people in this message that are what I would call backsliders, even if they're not backsliders, but they're coming into the truth just under the wire of the midnight cry, as opposed to coming into the truth just under the wire of the Sunday law. Okay, we have said in here, I've said at least, I would rather be an 11th hour worker. I'd rather come in at the last moment and not have to put up with all the nonsense that the Levites had to go through. But I'd rather be a Levite than a priest, because the priests, they got to start right from the beginning. And so that's been the logic, but I realized that was wrong, okay, at least at one level. Those people, the backsliders as I'm calling them, that are coming in at the tail end of this period of the priests, they're going to have a test for themselves that the Lord is going to put them through that is only going to become more and more severe the closer they get to the cutoff line. If they would have been born and raised Seventh-day Adventists and stayed faithful all the way through, then the Lord would have had many things resolved for them. So when it come to this binding off period, they would have some issues. But compared to those that have put it off to the very close, to the approaching, then the Lord, because He is a God, a testing God, He is going to bring upon those persons that come in a test to demonstrate their seriousness, their consecration, to hang in there. And therefore, I'm realizing that the longer you wait, the more difficult it is. It's more blessed to be called a priest and have your head on straight and get it together than put it off to the 11th hour workers. This logic is supported by one of the hardest truths that we have. And that is, what happens to those 11th hour workers? They die. They have a test that they have to prove that they have fully caught up with everyone else that is severer at one level. Who wants to be a martyr? I mean, if you're going to be a martyr, the Lord's going to give you the faith for it when that time arrives, but there's not very many of us that are seeking that. So I'm just putting in the record from what I'm seeing for those people that are coming into this message at the very end. They need to be aware, your daughter needs to be aware, that if she's not only going to come back here but take up this message, she's going to be tested. I don't know her experience. I don't know what her test is going to be, but it isn't going to be easy. Okay, that's my personal input on that. They're purposeful, though, as we were reading in the Great Controversy. So we started with Isaiah 27 for our scripture reading. Isaiah 27, verse 2. I don't know, a couple of years ago, back when we used to do prayer meeting in the sanctuary, that's how long ago, we started off, we spent some time going through Isaiah 27, much of us that were here then, and we marked the verse 1 of 9/11. This is the beginning of the judgment of the dragon. The ships of Tarshish are struck here, but verse 2 says, in that day, 9/11, sing ye unto her a vineyard of red wine. I, the Lord, do keep it. I will water it every moment, lest any hurt it. I will keep it night and day. Fury is not in me. Who would set the briars and thorn against me? I would go through them. I would burn them together. At 9/11, the parable of the vineyard begins. And this is our message in 9/11. And the parable of the vineyard, whether it's the Old Testament in the time of Isaiah or in the time of Christ in the New Testament, it's the parable of the Lord taking the distinction from a chosen covenant people and giving it to another chosen covenant people. And since 9/11, that's what's been going on. It's the Seventh-day Adventist Church is being passed by, and a new group of representatives for Christ are entering into covenant with Him, just as was the case in the Millerite history, when the parable of the vineyards was fulfilled upon the Protestants, who followed the footsteps of the Jewish church in their day and age as they rejected Christ. And Christ entered into covenant with the Christian church. The Protestants paralleled the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the Millerites paralleled the Christian church. And that's what's going on in our history. And it was when we got to this passage that I never realized it. I don't know if you've ever done this. This was kind of an obscure passage, I think, for all of us, Isaiah 27. But then it comes alive with 9/11. And then as you're searching it out, if you've done this, you realize that one of the most often quoted verses from the Bible by Sister White is here in Isaiah 27, in verse 5. Or let him take hold of my strength, that he may make peace with me, and he shall make peace with me. Okay, so it's just saying, you got wheat and tares, and the Lord is doing a work, which is the parable of the vineyard. He is separating the wheat from the tares. The tares have no strength against him. When he walks through, when he judges the tares, the briars and thorns, he's just going to burn them up. They have no resistance to resist the will of the Lord. He's accomplishing the parable of the vineyard. He is purifying Jerusalem to lift it up as an ensign at the Sunday law. And in this time period, if you're a backslider, now I've been talking about some of our children that come in at the last moment, but if you're a backslider sitting in this sanctuary that is backsliding at a different level, living and professing this message but still not having our head on straight, if we're one of those, the promise is at this time that if we make peace with the Lord, He'll make peace with us. And we have to hold on to that. Because but for the grace of God, you're here in hot old Arkansas. But you could be in Zimbabwe, where suddenly the whole nation is thinking you're some kind of fanatical offshoot. So, you better make peace with him, because the other option is not a good option. Okay, the binding up. That's that thought. This is review. I never had even one thought that this would be something that flowed, all right, segued into this. I'm just sharing some things that have been going on recently in connection with this message for those of us that have been following it.
So you're saying that you're binding off Isaiah 27?
Yeah, I'm going to address this a little bit of what my brother Tyler was addressing this morning. All right. Here's 9/11. Midnight cry. Ezra 7:9. Says, this way mark is the first day of the first month. This way mark is the first day of the 5th month. And this way mark is the 10th day of the 7th month. Okay, in Millerite history, this would be 419. This would be 815. This would be 1022. All of these are 1844. Yes? Okay, in the history of Elizabeth, this would be Zacharias being struck dumb. This would be 5 months of hiding. And 1 month for a total of 6 months. Here, Mary and Elizabeth prophesy. And here, Zechariah speaks. Okay, so this is what's being becoming the subject, the binding off period. In Revelation 9, back here in 1989, according to Revelation 9, you have the fifth trumpet that goes to here where the first woe begins. And the first woe goes to here where the second woe and the sixth trumpet begins. Yes? And in this beginning history over here, this would be 1840. This is 1844. This is another illustration. In this beginning of the sixth trumpet, you have the number 4. And at the end, you have the number 4. This here is the end of the second woe. And this is the end, the beginning of the seventh trumpet. Put it that way. So,
Which takes you to 25:20.
yeah, well, it could probably do lots of things, but you got to be selective about what you're going to try to share. So when we come to the Millerite history, we're seeing that this history here is a binding off history, okay? Brother Tyler pointed out that this is where Judas falls. This is where Matthias is chosen in here. And Matthias is a symbol of the numbering. This is where the number is going on. And Sister White tells us that the third angel comes not only to seal, but to number. And what number is Matthias? 12. Can you have a 12th tennis ball without 11 already in your hand? Okay, so you can't separate the number 12 from the first 11. I mean, you can do it on a chart here to graph it out 11 and 1. But what I'm saying is Matthias is simply illustrating the climax of the numbering that began back here. This is the numbering of the priests. All right, so he's marking when that is concluded, as Tyler correctly said, in this third step of this history. This history here is a 3-step process, but these 2 tests have something different than that test. These 2 tests have Isaiah 27 verse 5 is still open. Let him make peace with me and I will make peace. But here, too late. You had to make peace back here. No probation here. Here's a demonstration of the character you developed in this history. Everyone following that? Okay, so there's a lot of things that go on in this binding off period. But one of our main points of reference is is this is the same binding off period. Millerite history. This is July 21st and August 15th. Yes? Everyone following that? Same presentation. Samuel Snow's going to give his sermon on the Midnight Cry, only here he does it in Boston, and here he does it in Exeter. And how many days from here to here? 25 days. And this is midnight in the history of the 7-month movement, and this is the Midnight Cry. And this, in this history, is also the 5th day of the 4th month. The 5th day of the 4th month is only mentioned one time in the scripture, 5th day, 4th month. And that's in Ezekiel 1:1. So, in the history, well, maybe you're not following it, from the 1st day of the 1st month to the 1st day of the 5th month to the 10th day of the 7th month, in the Millerite history, okay, if you start here, 1st day of the 1st month, and go to the 10th day of the 7th month, and you put that on a line up here, and you count the days, the dead center of that history was July 21st. That's why it was midnight. That's why the Millerites taught that July 21st at the Boston Tabernacle was midnight for their history. Okay, but
The midway point.
the midway point, Sister White calls it the midway point. But this is also the 5th day of the 4th month in the large scheme of things. And here is where Ezekiel has the Mara vision. Not the Mare, the Mara vision. Okay, so there's something going on in here that is being marked by Ezekiel. And this is outside the scope. I could have tried to present this today, but I don't have it all together on this. But you can show that John, Daniel, Ezekiel, and Isaiah, probably Moses, but at least those first 4, that they have this experience with Christ where they're confronted with the Mare, the Chazon, and the Mara. The Chazon is the vision of prophetic history. An easy illustration of that is that chart. That chart is laying out prophetic history from the beginning of the world to the end of time. You can read it into that chart. Okay? The Mare vision is the appearance of Christ in all his glory. But when Daniel has this vision in chapter 10, he's with a group of people. And right here, what's that group do? They run. They fled. They fled, and who are they?
Judas.
They're Judas. Okay, so Daniel alone saw the vision, and what he saw was the Mare vision, meaning that he illustrates someone that has the correct response to the Mare vision, to the vision of God's character and his providential control of all things. This reality humbles Ezekiel, John, Isaiah, Daniel into the dust. And when it comes to Daniel, it's 3 touches. Or, as Tyler was saying this morning, it's those 3 tests at the end of the 40 days of wilderness wandering. Or, if you want to take another line, it's the 3 cups.
Three what?
The 3 cups in the Garden of Gethsemane. there's something that goes on in this history that is not the everlasting gospel. It has several things, as Brother Dwayne shared from the newsletter here today, several things that are going on here. But one of them is it's preparing Daniel here to give this message, the Midnight Cry message. Because when Daniel's been touched 3 times, what's he told?
Speak, be strong.
Okay.
So your 1, 2, 3 is touching 3 times?
Yeah, he's touched 3 times there in Daniel 10.
That's 1, 2, 3 is that's touching.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm saying is this is not the everlasting gospel where in this history 2 classes are going to be manifested and separated. This is, as Tyler pointed out, this is the 3rd message. This is the binding off. This is the numbering. And there is something about this experience that all the prophets go through that prepare you to give a message here. Okay, when did I start? How much time do I have? 15 minutes. Let's see if we can factor one thing in that we should all know. This is either August 11th, 1840 or 9/11. An angel comes down. When the angel comes down, what's he have in his hand? A little book. Okay, that if it has a little book in his hand, which angel is he? He's the first. If he has a writing in his hand, which angel is it? It's the second. If he has a scroll in his hand, it's the third. Because Sister White's seen an angel come down on October 22nd, 1844, and he had a scroll in his hand. So what does that tell you upon 3 witnesses?
When the angel comes down, there's a new message.
When the angel comes down, there's something to eat. Every time, yes? You got 3 witnesses. And in Ezekiel and Jeremiah, when you eat that little book, what do you have to do? You got to proclaim a message. Yes? Okay, so anywhere here that you see an angel come down, it's telling you that there's a message that God's people are going to have to proclaim. Right? You buy that in theory? Okay, well, here, was there an angel that come down?
Yeah.
Is that 9/11?
9/11.
Well, that's what he has there.
Okay, so there's going to be a special message for the priests. Yes? Okay, is there an angel going to come down here? Will give me a thus saith the Lord. Okay, you got some, just other than theory? Early writings, what?
Early range.
The early rain?
No, early writings, Sister White said that another angel was down.
It's 247. It's the empowerment of the second angel.
Okay, the empowerment of the second angel.
She said that it joined the second, the midnight cry joined the second angel, just as earlier in education.
The 4th angel joins the 3rd, just as the midnight cry joined the 2nd angel. So there's an angel that comes down here. So what does that mean for here?
Another message.
New message here? New message here? Is there an angel that comes down here?
It's the same.
New message.
11th hour.
This is the message for the 11th hour workers. Are we going to go teach them about Millerite history? No, this is about Sabbath and Sunday. God's law. Okay, so in this history, you know that it's about a message. Okay? Midnight cry message in Boston, midnight cry message in Exeter. It's about a preparation to give the midnight cry message. Yes? So, in this, the 25, I'm running out of time. I'm trying to think on my feet on how to bind this off, okay? So I'm going to run some things by you. The different lines of 25. Okay, in this binding off period, whether it's a point in time or a period of time, okay? In this binding off period, what I'm saying is this is where you are prepared to give this message. In this binding off period, this is where you're prepared to give this message, okay? But in this binding off period, one of the symbols that we have is the 25. 25 days from July 21st to August 15th, which is, in this history, where the 25 elders are bowing down to the sun in Ezekiel 8. Okay? That's Judas. They're bowing down right here. And it's going to be manifested right here. They're going to have a character, these false priests, prepared for the mark of the beast in advance of the Sunday law. This is where it'll be manifested, but their character is set back here. The 25 is showing this activity. It's showing that they're bowing down right here. And we've got all kinds of bowings right here. We have the last emperor of Eastern Rome bowing to the four great sultans. We have, in 1840, the last sultan bowing to the four great European powers. We have Abigail bowing here. We have the 25 elders bowing here.
You mean the 25 elders in Revelation?
No. Is there 25 elders in Revelation? I thought it was 24. Okay, so here we have 1855, don't we? What's that take you to? 1855 and the great Lisbon, Portugal earthquake? 1755, there you go. That sounds better. To what? 1780. 1755 to 1780.
Oh, yes, right.
The Lisbon, Portugal earthquake and the Dark Day. Okay? And if you don't think the Dark Day fits, then line it up with the third, sixth, and ninth hour and the darkness at the cross. It fits. Anyway, so you got the 25s in here. What about 1863 to 1888? 25 years. You suppose that 1863 to 1888 is fitting in there? Well, yeah, all fits in there. So there was somewhere I wanted to go there. Oh, I know where it is. If you understand this, based upon here in this 4-year period, in agreement with Revelation 9, okay, we have 1449 here, 1453 here. 4-year period from the last Eastern emperor surrendering his throne to the four sultans, and then in 1451, the Sultan wants to conquer Constantinople, and on 1453, it's conquered. The walls come down. That's the beginning of the sixth trumpet. At the end of the sixth trumpet, you have another 4 years. You have 1840 to 1844. Yes? So when you bring that down here, you have 1840 to 1844. You with me? Okay. 1840 is Lich. 1844 is snow. Do you know what I mean by that? Lich predicted 1840. Snow predicted 1844. And This allows us to put these two here. And when you put these two here, it's about what? It's about a message. It's about a message that gets prepared and then proclaimed. Yes? So when it comes to lich, what added nuance do we have? Yeah, it's about Islam, but I'm not going to Islam. Who said that?
That nuance is proved the years they printed.
Is that he first publicizes his prediction in 1838. Okay, and the publication of his prediction. See, the people in Zimbabwe, there's enough people over there to know that what these guys are predicting is that the Lord's about to return. Okay, and because they're making this prediction, for whatever reason, they're becoming the focus of the public press. And what's happening to them? They're being lifted up in the public attention. Okay, what was happening right here? Lich's message begins to lift it up in the public attention. Here it's still ridicule, but when it comes to pass, it's empowered. Okay, and what other nuance do we have there? He fine-tunes it 10 days before. So,
What did you just say?
he fine-tunes it. If you know the story of Lich, in 1838, he wrote an article predicting the collapse of the Ottoman Empire in August of 1840. But on August 1st, he fine-tuned his prediction and put it in writing 10 days before August 11th. And he nails August 11th now. So there is, what's happening here? There's an ascension beginning right back here. Increase of knowledge, and those people that are making this prediction are becoming the focus of public scrutiny.
Fine-tuning came from the same source.
Fine-tuning came from the same source,
There.
meaning Lich.
And, as a kind of question, Zimbabwe getting lifted up with this message. Are they going to be the one that fine-tunes it?
Oh, I don't know. They style themselves as an extension of Future for America, if that's the line you're thinking of. So, what have I done here today? What I've done here is a review of just a handful of things that, and not all of the things that are currently swirling in this message. This binding off period, it's a point of time and a period of time. If you heard Tyler, he was leaning, it's got to be a period of time. I don't know that it has to be either. I believe that whether the line that is given us from this prophecy or the line that's given us from this prophecy, whether it's a point in time or a period of time, our responsibility is to glean the prophetic characteristics of whether it's a point in time and a period of time and feed it into this period of time. And if the Lord's going to bring some clarity beyond what we're understanding about it, whether it's a point or a period, at this point, there is light to be gleaned from either approach. Whether you're looking from 1840 to 1844, Sister White in Great Controversy 611 says it's a glorious manifestation of the power of God in this history. And in this history, Daniel's getting humbled into the dust totally in order that he could be lifted up here. And what went on here for Daniel was a glorious manifestation of the power of God. And he accomplished it by letting him see Christ and his glory and his control over prophetic history so that it humbled him in the dust. That's typified by 1840 to 1844.
Well, then does Sister White tell us that justification is the laying Lord again in the dust or something like that?
The work of the Lord in laying humanity into the dust. Yeah, this is. You know that one? Yeah, we all know that. We all agree. Yeah, the work of Christ in laying our humanity in the dust is justification by faith. But I see that this is where I differ from some of us that are looking at this. I'm saying Daniel's already justified here. I'm saying that if Daniel would have died for whatever reason, if he would have died at the first touch, he was saved. I'm saying that, as Tyler pointed out, the people that go through the time of Jacob's trouble, they're saved.
They don't know it
They may not know it, but they're saved. There's something about this that isn't about a probationary time where you can fall.
It's a purifying.
It's removing the earthliness in the time of Jacob's troubles.
The quote that you're referring to is from Richard Harold, December 2018. Actually includes Job, Isaiah, Daniel, John, and Paul. That they've all come to the same experience, meaning the Maravishis.
Okay, let's have our closing hymn. Pardon me, I got to pray. Heavenly Father, as we find ourselves here at the end of the world with this profound and escalating message opening before our eyes, we understand we are incapable of pulling all this together unless you abide with us and guide us and direct us. We thank you for your leading up to this point. But there are big concepts that you're opening to us now that we want help with. We ask that you continue to put this message into a understanding in our hearts and minds where we can simply convey it to those that we come in contact with. We thank you for allowing us to be part of this message up to this point and ask for a continued blessing as we move forward in Jesus' name. Amen.